Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about something that a lot of us in the asexual community deal with. Ace erasure and invalidating comments. If you've ever heard phrases like, it's just a phase, or you just haven't met the right person, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. In this video, I'll break down common examples of ace erasure, why they're harmful, and how we can respond to these comments while also taking care of ourselves. First, let's define ace erasure. Ace erasure happens when people dismiss, invalidate, or ignore the existence of asexuality. This can look like being told asexuality isn't a real orientation, or hearing that you're just going through a phase and will eventually grow out of it. It's also common to see asexual people left out of LGBTQ plus conversations, or media, or even legislation and protections, such as the latest changes to Title IX, which explicitly states protections for LGBTQI plus students, but omits Aspec individuals in any direct references, which can make us feel like we don't belong or aren't valid in our identity. Erasure can be both intentional and unintentional, but no matter the intention, it can be really harmful. It sends the message that our experiences don't matter, and that we need to change to fit society's expectations. Now let's talk about some of the most common invalidating comments that ace people hear. These are the kinds of things we often hear from friends, family, or even strangers when we come out or talk about being asexual. You just haven't met the right person. You're just a late bloomer and you'll know when it's right. Everyone goes through this phase. You're just too young to know for sure. Maybe you're just scared of intimacy or have trauma to work through. It's probably a medical issue. Sound familiar? I know they do for me. These comments can be frustrating because they dismiss our identity and they imply that something's wrong with us. They make it seem like asexuality is just a temporary state or something that needs to be fixed. But being ace isn't a problem or even something that needs a solution. It's a valid and real identity, just like any other sexual orientation. Ace erasure and these kinds of comments are harmful for several reasons. First, they invalidate our experiences, making us feel like we don't know our own identities. When people tell us that asexuality isn't real or that we'll grow out of it, it can create real doubt, especially for those of us who are newly realizing that we're ace. Secondly, ace erasure can make us feel isolated. When asexuality is erased in conversation or media, we don't see ourselves reflected in the world around us. This can lead to feelings of alienation or loneliness, especially when people around us don't understand or accept our identities. Finally, these comments ignore the fact that asexuality is a spectrum. There are many ways to be ace, whether you're sex repulsed, sex averse, or even sex favorable. You may occasionally experience sexual attraction as a gray ace or demisexual person, or anywhere else on the spectrum. Reducing our identities to these dismissive comments completely erases the complexity of the ace spectrum. Now let's talk about how we can respond to ace erasure and invalidating comments. First off, you don't owe anyone an explanation for your identity. If you're feeling drained or unsafe, it's okay to walk away from the conversation or set boundaries around what you're willing to discuss. But when you do feel ready to engage, here's a few ways you might respond. First is through education. Sometimes people just don't know what asexuality is, and they're speaking from ignorance. If you feel up to it, you can explain what asexuality is, that it's a valid sexual orientation, and that it's not just about meeting the right person. It's simply about how you experience or don't experience sexual attraction. You can set boundaries. If someone is repeatedly invalidating your identity, it's important to set clear boundaries with them. You can say something like, I need you to respect my identity. This is not up for debate. Some people find that humor helps diffuse uncomfortable situations. For example, if somebody says, how do you know you're ace if you've never tried it? One of my favorite comebacks that I've seen a bunch of times in my comments section has been, have you ever hugged a cactus? How do you know you wouldn't like it if you've never tried it? Another option is just walk away. It's always okay to disengage. Not every conversation is worth having. Not every hill is worth laying down on, especially if it's clear that the other person isn't willing to learn or listen. Protecting your mental health comes first. A great resource I've found for responding to specific comments has been ASTAD advice. On their Instagram, ASTAD occasionally will post an example of an invalidating comment, then give you an example of how to respond to it. Here's an example. The invalidating comment says, I just think you're afraid of relationships. That's why you're ace or you're arrow. ASTAD suggests on the next image that we respond with this. Being aspec isn't the result of fear or anxiety about relationships. I don't appreciate you reducing my lived experience in that way. If aspec folks have fears about relationships, it's because other people dismiss and dehumanize us. We have fears about our aspec selves not being respected or supported by a partner. Instead of dismissing my aspec identity, try approaching it with curiosity and learning. After dealing with ace erasure or invalidating comments, it's important to take care of yourself. Hearing these things can take a toll on your mental and emotional health, so make sure to take time to process your feelings and recharge. Whether that means reaching out to supportive friends, spending time in ace-friendly spaces, or just treating yourself to something that brings you joy. Give yourself permission to take care of your well-being. You're valid. You're not alone. You don't have to change for anyone, and your experience as an ace person matters. Another thing I've learned from ASTAD is the art of reframing your thinking. Unfortunately, sometimes these comments may find their way into our heads. Those pressures might feel a little heavier at times. But reframing our thinking can help us break through those thoughts. Here's another example from ASTAD's Instagram page. Here they'll help us reframe this line of thinking. I need to act allo in order for a relationship to work for me. I'll admit I've even thought that before, but instead, ASTAD suggests thinking, if I want my relationships to uplift and nurture me, I need to ask what I want and communicate what I need, even if that goes against what society expects of me. I just started my 11th year of teaching, and something you'll find in my classroom is a series of posters with suggestions on how to reframe your thinking as a student. In education, we refer to this as a growth mindset. For instance, instead of thinking, I made a mistake, so I should give up, we should keep a growth mindset and instead think, what have I learned from this mistake so I can do it better next time? I've always really liked the phrase growth mindset, and I think it applies to asexuality too. We don't have to let anyone, even ourselves, hold our growth back. Reframing our thinking can help us break through it to live our best asexual lives. Dealing with ace erasure is tough, but remember that your identity is valid, no matter what anyone else says. I want to quickly shout out my good friend Cody Daigle-Oriens, aka ASTAD, for granting me permission to use some of their content for this video. Be sure to follow and support ASTAD advice through the links in the description of this video, including a link to pre-order their new book, The Ace and Arrow Relationship Guide, coming out on October 21st. As an English teacher, I always say don't judge a book by its cover, but in this case, this cover goes hard, right? Definitely be sure to check that out. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content about asexuality, aromanticism, and aspec experiences. And feel free to share your own stories about dealing with ace erasure in the comments. I'd love to hear how you navigate these situations. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.